Hey folks, today we're covering Tinto Talks 80, and this is going to cover the golden age of piracy and the little ice age. They're going to start here by talking about the golden age of piracy. Although there always has been pirates at sea, that is true. With this situation in the mid to late game, they aim to portray their golden age, especially in the Caribbean Sea, around the second half of the 17th century. As such, the situation may trigger at the start of the Age of Absolutism in 1637 and may be active for as long as 50 years. You can see this here, the golden age of piracy, some nice art there as well. The seas churn with the chaos of shifting powers, crumbling trade monopolies and restless ambition. As the powers of Europe wage endless wars for domination, their merchant fleets grow fat and complacent, easy prey for bold men with sharp cutlasses and swifter ships. So you can see in that blue background the historical reasoning for this event. An era of privateering and skullduggery is upon us. Once this does start, you get the situation info panel. And as they showed a couple of weeks ago, the new hint system that is coming in EU5, you're also going to have this for the golden age of piracy. You can see it on the screen now. The golden age of piracy is a situation that may give rise to new pirates, free men, disgruntled sailors, and those who defy centralized authority. And then, as we saw a couple of weeks ago, this gives you some hints as to what you should do. So recommended actions to combat pirates. Surprisingly, consider eradicating any pirates near our coast. We cannot afford for them to be roaming our seas. The second one, each event associated with this situation may herald the rise of a new pirate republic. They're going to talk about that in a second. And then if you are playing as a pirate, it would be wise to secure the coast and build a mighty navy. By utilizing actions such as attract sailors and migrate to new waters, we can maintain a versatile fleet and presence. And again, they're going to talk about those actions later on in this dev diary. You can see the situation panel next. The golden age of piracy started on the 1st of June 1637. The piracy law in the top left hand corner, they're going to cover that. And then you can see that same art again. And then the end requirements are below that, where you can see how you can finish this situation. There are a couple of ways to end it. The first one, if there are no pirate nations and it's been going on for more than 30 years. The last one is if the event's been going on for more than 50 years, even if there are pirate nations, like the golden age of them will come to an end, but they will still exist. You can see some main actions as well. Create subject pirate nation, request anti-piracy policy. They're going to talk about that later on. You can see some more information here around that piracy law button that we did see earlier. That will take you directly to the law you have regarding piracy. And you can see in this example, naval maintenance plus 10%, anti-piracy warfare modifier plus 25%, because this is the anti-piracy version of this. Can create an anti-piracy war casus belli, yes. When implemented, the opinion of every country with state piracy policy will change their opinion towards us by minus 25. Obviously, if you revoke this policy, they will not dislike you by minus 25. So that is why that number is in green, because that will remove that effect if you do so. There are other options in here. You can have state piracy, letters of marque, anti-piracy, or sea beggars. So again, these different layers of this. Do you want to support piracy? Do you want to be anti-piracy? Or do you want to be letters of marque, which is like privateering? And then sea beggars, that's one specific to the Netherlands. And then in the top right hand corner, you saw that send privateers option, and they're going to talk through how you unlock that with the content available in the game. So there are two generic advances, one in the Age of Renaissance and one in the Age of Reformation. There are three unique advances, one available in the Age of Tradition, one for Novgorod in the Age of Renaissance, and the final one being for the Frisian countries in the Age of Discovery. There are two policies in the piracy law, the state policy generic one, and then the sea beggars unique one for the Netherlands, as we talked about earlier. The galley lords reform, available for countries in the Celtic culture group, and then the pirate brethren reform. This is the default major reform for the pirate countries, because yes, you can play as pirate countries in this game. A navy-based country, which sounds really cool. And you can see that on the screenshot here, privateers. This tab allows some countries to send privateers against their enemies, and you can see a pop out of this. Privateers are enterprising people who have responded to the call from a country to wreak havoc on the maritime presence of anyone hostile to them. For those who encounter these people, they are indistinguishable from pirates. And then what are pirates? If you don't know, pirates are boat-based attackers of other ships or coastal areas that steal goods or ducats, which is gold in the game. So obviously if you have these spawning around your empire and you have a coastline, you are going to see some losses if you don't deal with them. And then next they're going to talk around the situation actions. There are two of them, as we saw, with two different courses of action. The first one is sponsoring pirates, and the second one is combating pirates. A lot less interesting. We want some piracy going on, but I guess if it is affecting your realm, you probably don't want pirating going on. So the first one, request anti-piracy policy. The scourge of piracy on the high seas is so difficult to eradicate because some godless nations have the guile and support to finance these brigands openly. And for this, we will reach out and attempt to persuade this nation to change their law. This will cost you 10 prestige. And then if you click this, you'll have the option to choose a country. In this case, it is Morocco. You're going up to Morocco and saying, hey, could you not do this? A strong front against piracy will happen. This is where, if you're playing as England, you'll come up and say, can you please stop supporting piracy? And you can decide then, do you want to do that? Or do you want to say, do you know what? It's perfectly fine. Then they'll probably get a cast a spell eye on you, though, to force you to not do it. The other option, as we saw earlier, is to create a pirate nation and support piracy. Through the writings of a letter of marque, the granting of location, one of our fleets, and some starting gold to entice the first few crew members, we will ensure the creation of a den of pirates and cutthroats. So it looks like you give away some of your navy and some money, and then you make this subject pirate nation. In this example, 154 gold, you select where you want this to happen. Again, in this one, select Bilbao. This will then turn into a navy-based country subject, and they will be designated in this location, and you can see that in the next screenshot, a nation of pirates. After the issue of a new letter of marque by Castile, a great group of brigands and cutthroats have gathered around the despicable figure of Captain Esteban in Bilbao, and you can say valet, or you can say a pirate life for me. And then you can play as these pirates, which is really fun to do. You could do this in EU4. I think it was in the Caribbean. There was one of those nations you could play as pirates. But in EU5, it looks like it's a lot easier to set this up. And then obviously you do get to play as this pirate nation. This is an entirely different type of country. One they haven't talked about yet, and that is the Navy-based country. You can see that on the screen as I've been saying that. A Navy-based country is a country that can own locations, but its existence relies entirely on its navy. If these are destroyed, the country will collapse. And as they said earlier, there is a unique reform for these nations, and you can see that on the screen here. Pirate Brethren, government reform. We will change our succession law to pirate elective. I want the pirate elective HRE going on in a campaign. You can see the modifiers here. Can hire privateers. Navy maintenance minus 33% obviously makes sense. Possible government reforms +1. Monthly progress towards naval 0.2. Kind of feel like that should be even more, like just +2 or something. Like naval is obviously the basis of this. That succession law, the pirate elective, you can see this here. Decided by election, rules for life, allows both male and female, and the estates as well that can be eligible to be the ruler. So again, a pretty cool version of this that you can play as. Besides all regular gameplay mechanics, this also opens up some new actions for them in the situation. And you can see those on the screen now. Abandon piracy, why would you do that? Attract sailors, migrate to new waters. If you abandon piracy, we have realized there is a better way to get filthy rich. If we protect the peasants and burghers from other pirates and robbers, they will just let us take some of their produce and gold without having to fight for it. If we invested in infrastructure and troops, we can multiply it by even more. Yes, we'll just go back to being a normal country, but you can see you'll become a settled country. You will no longer have the pirate brethren government reform. The pirate stronghold will be destroyed in Bilbao. I mean, why would you do this? Well, I guess it would be pretty cool to be one of these pirate nations and then settle down as a normal nation. It would be pretty interesting, I suppose. But many of us probably will stay as pirates. The other option, attract sailors. By showing off our wealth in neighbouring port taverns and promising better treatment and pay, we can attract sailors. We will gain 2.5 navy tradition and 500 sailors. Obviously, you need a lot of sailors. If you're losing battles, you need to replenish those sailors somehow, and this is how you can do it. And then the last one, migrate to new waters. There are bigger fish and fatter merchants in other parts of the globe. It is time for us to go searching for them. You will be able to seek our luck by migrating to a faraway coastal location. So this one looks really cool. You can move your realm into other locations. I guess if you have a lot of trouble, say in the Mediterranean, if you are in Bilbao, maybe you'll move to North America, maybe you'll move to Asia or something like that and see if you can have better luck in those places. There are also historical events that spawn 6 different historical pirate nations. I'm going to do my best to pronounce these. New Providence, Libertalia, Salé, Tutuan, Port Royal, and Tortuga, which are obviously available to play if they spawn in your country. So yes, if you have that location, you will get this pop-up, the Brethren of the Coast. On the islands off the coast of Tortuga, a secret assembly of pirates and privateers gather for their inaugural meeting. Inside a makeshift cabin, the pirates collaborate on a crucial agreement. And you can see here again in that blue text, a very famous example of this. A pirate's life for me, so yes, you can go play as Tortuga, or they will hang for this, and obviously you're going to go up against them. as that nation. You can see that on the screen here though. Tortuga, this is the nation that's now spawned, and they're going to be having some pirating fun times. And then as they mentioned earlier, Pirate Stronghold is their special building, and this gives them 20 gold if in their capital, which is a crazy amount of gold. That's really good. I guess they do need money from somewhere when they're not pirating. And then effects on this location, maritime presence +1, monthly sailors +20. It looks like you can build this elsewhere, but if it's not on your capital, it doesn't give you 20 more gold. So you can't just crazy stack that gold modifier. This is a Paradox game. They'd never let you do that. The next thing they're going to show is what happens at the end of the situation. A great age for pirates is this one. The so-called golden age of piracy was supposed to burn itself out, but guess what? Didn't happen. No shore is safe. This will just carry on going. You can see the modifiers here. The situation ends. You gain a bunch of admin, a bunch of diplomatic and military ability score, and then that kind of boosts that character up that little bit better. And then you get a great pirate state modifier. Naval morale +15%, monthly naval tradition 0.2, monthly Republican tradition 0.5 as well. So that would be a very good bonus to pick up if you can survive it. Or I guess if you're unable to wipe somebody out, they will get those bonuses. The next one is the end of the golden age of piracy. For decades, the scourge of piracy have haunted our coasts. Guess what? We wiped them out. And for this, the pests are no more. The golden age of piracy situation has ended. I imagine there's some other bonuses as well, but it's kind of cut off so we can't see them. But with that, that's our initial look at piracy. Let me know what you think about this. I think it's going to be really fun to play. Like, trying to be one of these pirate nations, they're going to be very annoying as well, especially with your trade routes, doing that Columbian exchange, things like that they talked about last week. It's going to be annoying for that kind of thing, but I think they are going to be fun. And then as they said at the start, the second half of this dev diary is on the Little Ice Age, and they have a little section at the start here saying, although this period was considered to start around the 14th or 15th century, how they are going to represent this in the game is the very cold period that started in 1650 and lasted for some decades, obviously different in different areas. They consider this a good fit for the game, as it is a global situation happening during the Age of Absolutism, from 1645 to 1750. So I guess with all the different situations we've got going on, and they thought this would be a fun thing to throw in, a little bit of a twist in the gameplay whilst you're trying to do other things as well. So yes, it isn't perfectly when it happened historically. They've kind of pushed it in wherever it made sense for the game. So in recent years, we have hosted a series of winters far harsher than usual. Crop failures, starvation, and the encroaching cold has made life in the Crown of Castile a challenge. Again, that blue background text, historically what happened. With a bit of a prayer, we will see better days soon. Well, maybe not so much. Winter will last longer, and food supplies will suffer as famines and shortages will likely appear during this period. You'll see the same situation panel here. The chill of the Little Ice Age tests the resilience of our people, forcing rulers to adapt or watch their domain descend into hardship. And then again, the hint system being shown off here. Winter is coming. I think that's who said that. It wasn't anyone else in anything else. The Little Ice Age recommended actions. Consider expanding buildings that produce or enhance the production of food. With this, as a player, you obviously know it's coming, so you'll probably work towards this before it happens. Maybe it will catch you out the first time you're playing. It would be kind of cool if there was a game setting where you could change when this happens, maybe randomize when it happens, just so you don't always know exactly when it's coming, so you can't preempt it as much as you can do otherwise. And then also there are some extra hints. We may utilize some unique actions to help bolster or redistribute food across our provinces. They're going to cover those in a second. And then you can see here the harsh winter modifier. This will be applied to all locations impacted by it, which will reduce their food capacity and production, as you can see, by minus 25%. Thus, this is a very mechanical situation in which managing food is a key action to do to avoid losing valuable population. As they say here, it's much more, we know food is going to be a problem. How do you mechanically combat that? Less so being event-based, although they are going to cover some of that in a second. You can see here the situation panel for it, the Little Ice Age. Again, that fantastic art in the picture. End requirements, this will end in 1715. Nothing else you can do about it. The locations affected, 243. Starving provinces, 5. I guess if you're not a realm affected by it, you could look here for like where is affected, where might have problems, where might not be able to feed their people, and then try take advantage of that. There are those actions they mentioned: enforce rationing policies, expand provincial food production, send food aid, and they're going to cover all of those right now. So the first one here is enforce rationing policies. With food shortages threatening imminent starvation, we must implement strict rationing policies to ensure supplies last through the harsh winters. Every province capital that we own in the designated market will gain enforced rationing policy. And what does that do? You can see this here. It basically modifies the food consumption by minus 10% for all the different estates, but yes, 5% more unrest. Obviously, most of these people Not going to be too happy about that, and they might let that be known to you. Expand provincial food production is the next one. The changing climate demands innovation in agriculture. By encouraging local food production, we can mitigate the effects of the cold. The selected province gains expanded food production for 10 years if possible. The location with the highest raw food material production in the same province also gains expanded raw material output for 10 years. So as you can see, this boosts food production. It looks like it costs you 5 legitimacy to do it. And then the food production plus 10% is the modifier. So that will counteract the fact that you are running out of food. Maybe in other provinces in that market. Obviously, they can move the food around then as well. The last option they showed is send food aid. Famine grips many provinces as harvests fail. By dispatching emergency food shipments to struggling provinces or allied nations, we can provide relief and prevent unrest, though at the expense of our own reserve elsewhere. So yes, this is where you can send food to another nation. And I guess you get some kind of modifier for this. Maybe they give you money. Maybe they give you some other modifiers. Maybe like your prestige goes higher as well because you're giving things away to another nation. And then besides the mechanical way this works, there are some narrative events. The first one here is cold and wet fields. The frost has been upon us for quite some time. The harvest seems ever shrinking in the eyes of the local peasantry as the local granaries are running out of produce. Such is the price we pay for life, or you can say, we can at least compensate the local farmers. I imagine that one gives them some money to invest. I'm not too sure. Maybe you give them some extra food from elsewhere again. We'll see once we get to play the game. The next one is no blades left in the plain. The migrating patterns of livestock has become quite stagnant in the last few centuries. The lack of available grazing fields and the ever-falling temperatures have made it extremely difficult to maintain our pastoral grounds. We can do nothing but observe the spread of the cold. The next one, obviously, the workings of a witch. What else would explain it? The recent harsh winters, hailstorms, and unending frost have taken a great toll on the peasants of a certain location. In such an inhospitable environment where people are pushed to the extremes, they often resort to seeking a scapegoat, and guess what? They found one. Burn this witch, or has the cold taken the last of their reason? And you can say, look, it isn't witches. It's definitely that weather. That's why your God sent it to us. That's definitely what happened. And then finally, when the situation ends, the end of the Little Ice Age. Decades after the world started freezing, we still struggle with famines of food production. Despite the adversaries brought forth by the Little Ice Age, we have survived, overcoming the latest obstacle in a series of hardships. We look forward to warmer days, little by little. Our areas will no longer be plagued by extended winter. This concludes the Little Ice Age, and then you'll get on to some summer days and good old times for your realm. And with that, that's the end of the overlook of the Piracy and the Little Ice Age. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. Both of these very interesting. The Piracy side obviously destabilizing your realm, but then obviously the Little Ice Age, if you don't get ready for that, it will potentially have major effects on your realm. Obviously starving population, not being able to trade as much because you need more of your food for yourself, or you're having to pay for that so you don't have as much money. All these different things are going to be causing problems for you. I imagine the modifier also affects combat and things like that. So it isn't just as easy as import more food, good times are going to happen. They do say at the end of this dev diary, there's going to be a few less dev diaries over the next couple of weeks, just due to some trips they've got to do. And also they've got more public holidays as well in Spain. But you can see here the schedule for the next couple of weeks. So this Thursday, we're getting the Trade and Economy Developer Diary 3. The next week on the 18th, we're getting the Developer Diary around Discovery. So I guess finding new lands, colonizing them, all those kind of things. A bit of an overview on how that whole system works. And then Wednesday the 24th, Johan will be back to talk about multiplayer. I know a lot of you have been asking about that. So we're going to get a whole dev diary around how multiplayer is going to work in this game. And they do say that's when the usual schedule returns. So we'll go back to Wednesday, Thursday, Friday for our dev diaries for EU5. So let me know again what you think about all of this, which one of those dev diaries you're looking forward to. But most importantly, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. I'm covering all the news around EU5, and I also cover Crusader Kings 3 in a very similar manner. But we'll leave it there for today, and I'll see you all next time.